The Sullivan Group's quarterly business meeting was always an exercise in family politics, but this time they'd outdone themselves. I stood in the doorway of the main conference room watching my brother Michael arrange nameplates for the important attendees. "Oh, Sarah," he said, barely glancing up the storage rooms. "Through there, we need all the space in here for actual clients." I looked down at my simple black pantsuit, expertly tailored Armani, though they'd never notice, and thought about the irony of the situation, about the documents in my briefcase that could change everything. "Actual clients?" I asked mildly. "You know, people who matter." My sister, Jennifer, chimed in, adjusting her flashy designer suit. "Not small-time consultants. Like you, small-time consultant." That's what they called me now, the family disappointment who'd walked away from Sullivan Group 5 years ago to find herself. They had no idea that I'd found a lot more than myself. I'd built an empire, the storage rooms actually gotten quite crowded. Michael smirked, "But I'm sure you can find a spot between the old filing cabinets and the broken printer very appropriate for your position." I thought about the email I'd received that morning, confirming that Sterling Enterprises had just acquired another 5% of Sullivan Group's shares. My company now owned 47% of their family business, all purchased through various shell corporations over the past 3 years. Not that they knew Sterling Enterprises was mine. The meeting starts in 20 minutes. Jennifer announced. "Importantly, we have some major clients coming in. Very exclusive deals in the works." She smoothed her skirt. "Pining. I'm handling the Maxwell contract personally." I bit back a smile, knowing that the Maxwell contract was actually with Sterling Enterprises with me. They just didn't know it yet. "How's the independent consulting going?" Michael asked with fake concern. "Still working out of that little office downtown?" That little office was actually a test site for one of my smaller companies. My real office occupied the top 3 floors of a downtown skyscraper, with a view that made Sullivan Group's headquarters look like it was in the suburbs I manage. I said quietly, picking up my briefcase, the storage room. "You said through there," Jennifer pointed dismissively. "Try not to make too much noise during the meeting. We have actual business to discuss." I walked into the storage room, closing the door behind me. The space was dusty, cramped, and poorly lit, a perfect metaphor for how my family saw me. The Sullivan Group's unwanted daughter relegated to the background. 5 years ago, I'd been exactly where Jennifer stood now. The rising star of Sullivan Group, next in line for leadership. Then I discovered some disturbing irregularities in the company's practices. Environmental violations swept under the rug, safety regulations ignored for profit workers, rights trampled without a second thought. When I brought my concerns to my father, he'd laughed. "That's business, sweetheart. If you can't handle it, maybe you should find something smaller to occupy yourself." So I did. I walked away, using my trust fund to start Sterling Enterprises. The name was a private joke. Sterling had been my mother's maiden name. She died when I was young, leaving me with a fortune she'd built independently of the Sullivan Empire money my father had never been able to touch. I built Sterling differently from the ground up. Ethical practices, sustainable policies, fair wages, and good working conditions. While Sullivan Group chased quick profits, Sterling invested in long-term stability and innovation. Now, 5 years later, Sterling Enterprises was one of the largest holding companies in the country we owned. Stakes in everything from tech startups to manufacturing plants, all operated with the same ethical standards. Our latest target, Sullivan Group itself. The company was vulnerable, though my family was too arrogant to see it. Years of cutting corners had left them exposed. Their stock price was falling. Major clients were jumping ship. They needed a massive capital injection to survive, which was exactly why they'd called this meeting. I settled into a dusty chair between filing cabinets, pulling out my laptop through the thin walls. I could hear the conference room filling up. Jennifer's voice carried clearly as she greeted people. "Mr. Maxwell, so wonderful to see you. We're very excited about our upcoming partnership." I smiled, knowing that Mr. Maxwell was actually here to meet with Sterling Sue. "Yumi, The partnership Jennifer thought she was negotiating was actually part of my larger plan to take control of Sullivan Group. My phone buzzed quietly. A message from my assistant. All preparations in place. Legal teams standing by other board members have confirmed their support. Another buzz. Mr. Maxwell asks if you want him to maintain the charade through the whole meeting or reveal your identity early. I considered for a moment, then typed back. Let's see how it plays out, but make sure he knows not to sign anything Jennifer puts in front of him. The storage room door opened suddenly, and my father's latest trophy wife stuck her head in. Zara, your father wants you to keep the door closed during the meeting. We can hear you typing. I nodded politely, thinking about how she'd react when she discovered her prenup had been purchased by Sterling last month, along with the private investigator's photos of her tennis lessons, with the pool boy through the wall. I heard my father start the meeting, Charles Sullivan, CEO of Sullivan Group, and patriarch of the family, still commanded attention when he spoke. But there was an edge of desperation in his voice today that hadn't been there 5 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. As you know, Sullivan Group is exploring new partnership opportunities. Such a nice way of saying they were desperately seeking investors to save them from bankruptcy. The company needed at least $200 million in new capital by the end of the quarter. Coincidentally, that was exactly how much Sterling Enterprises was prepared to offer. With conditions, my laptop showed a notification. Sullivan Group stock had dropped another 2% since market opening. The timing couldn't have been better. I heard Jennifer start her presentation, her voice full of false confidence as she outlined the Maxwell partnership proposal, the same proposal I'd already rejected twice through my Sterling executives, and with Mr. Maxwell's investment, she concluded triumphantly, Sullivan Group will be positioned to expand into new markets. Actually, Mr. Maxwell's familiar voice interrupted, I'm not here to discuss that proposal. I'm here to meet with the CEO of Sterling Enterprises. The room fell, silent. I could practically hear Jennifer's perfectly painted smile crack. I don't understand, she stammered. The meeting invitation was arranged through Sterling. Mr. Maxwell confirmed they now own a significant portion of Sullivan Group's shares, as well as controlling interest in several of your major clients, including my company. That's impossible, my father's voice boomed. We would know if someone was buying up our stock. I stood up, straightening my jacket. It was time, would you? I asked, opening the storage room door. Like you knew your environmental compliance reports were falsified, or that your Asian manufacturing plants violate international labour laws, or that your biggest clients have been looking for an ethical alternative. Every head in the conference room turned toward me. Jennifer's face went pale. Michael dropped his Mont Blanc pen. My father's expression froze somewhere between confusion and dawning horror. Sarah, he managed. What are you talking about? I smiled, stepping fully into the room. Perhaps we should start this meeting over after all. It's rude to keep your biggest shareholder in the storage room. The silence in the conference room was absolute. I walked to the head of the table, setting my briefcase down with a quiet but deliberate click. Sterling Enterprises, I began enjoying, how my father's face polled at each word. Currently owns 47% of Sullivan Group's shares. We also control interests in your major suppliers, hold the majority of your outstanding debt, and as of this morning, have partnership agreements with 80% of your client base. That's not possible, Jennifer stammered. Sterling is run by me. I finished, simply has been since I left Sullivan Group 5 years ago, though I'm not surprised you didn't know. You've all been too busy cutting corners and chasing quarterly profits to notice who was really buying up your company. Michael found his voice first, but you're just a consultant working out of some tiny office. That tiny office you love to mock. I smiled. It's one of our research and development sites. My actual office is in the Sterling Tower downtown. You know, the building that makes this one look small. I opened my laptop, connecting it to the room's display screen charts, and graphs appeared showing Sullivan Group's declining performance over the past 5 years, Let's review, shall we? Your stock price has dropped 60%. Since I left, major clients are fleeing, citing ethical concerns. You're facing 3 separate EPA investigations, and the Department of Labour is very interested in your overseas operations. Now see here, my father started, his face wreathing. You can't just come in here and I am. I cut him off because, unlike you, I built something sustainable, something ethical, while you were teaching Jennifer and Michael to hide violations and bribe inspectors. I was creating a company that actually follows the laws. Mr. Maxwell nodded approvingly. That's why we moved our business to Sterling. Their ethical standards are impeccable. Ethics don't pay bills. Jennifer snapped, but her voice wavered. Actually, I clicked to the next slide. They do. Sterling's profit margins are 30% higher than industry standard. Turns out treating workers fairly and respecting environmental regulations is good for business. I distributed folders to everyone at the table. Inside, you'll find our proposal for Sullivan Group's future. We're prepared to inject $200 million in new capital, the exact amount you need to avoid bankruptcy. And what do you want in return? My father asked, his business instincts. Finally, kicking in complete control, I said simply, the Sullivan family will retain 20% ownership, but operational decisions will be made by Sterling's board, which means things are going to change. Michael laughed nervously. You can't be serious. Dad, tell her she can't. Your sister owns nearly half the company, Mr. Maxwell interrupted, and she has proxy agreements with other major shareholders. She absolutely can. I clicked to another slide showing Sullivan Group's ethical violations over the past decade. The choice is simple. Accept our offer and let us clean up your mess, or watch your company collapse under the weight of its own corruption. You destroy your own family's legacy? Jennifer asked incredulously. This isn't about destroying anything, I corrected her. It's about building something better. Sterling's track record speaks for itself. We turn failing companies into sustainable enterprises. We just happen to be doing it to our own family business this time. My father stood up slowly, his face a mixture of anger and something else perhaps. Respect you, planned this, all of it. The quiet exit, the strategic acquisitions I learned from the best dad. I said quietly, he taught me everything about business, everything except ethics, for that I had to look to Mom. He flinched at the mention of my mother. She'd been the moral compass of the family, always pushing for better practices, safer conditions, real corporate responsibility after her death. Those values had died too, at least for the rest of them. The papers need to be signed today. I continued, pulling out the final documents. Your creditors won't wait any longer. Neither will the EPA. Jennifer grabbed my father's arm. Daddy, you can't let her do this. We can find other investors. Can you? I raised an eyebrow. Check your phones. The press release about Sterling's ownership stake just went public. Your stock is already dropping by market close. You'll be lucky if anyone wants to buy your office furniture. The room erupted in chaos. Board members frantically checked their phones. Michael slumped in his chair. All arrogance gone. Jennifer looked like she might faint. My father picked up the contract, reading it carefully. His hand shook slightly. You'll keep the Sullivan name? He asked finally. The company name, yes, but not the practices that have destroyed it. I met his eyes steadily. It's time for Sullivan Group to mean something more than profit at any cost. He nodded slowly, then reached for a pen. Wait! Jennifer shrieked. What about us? Our positions are secure, I said calmly. If you're willing to learn new ways of doing business, Sterling has excellent training programs for ethical corporate governance, or you can leave with your 20% ownership and find something else to do. You'd really fire your own siblings? Michael asked. I'd really expect my siblings to earn their positions, I corrected, like every other Sterling employee does. The contracts were signed within the hour as people filed out of the conference room. Mr. Maxwell stopped to shake my hand. Brilliantly done, he said quietly. Your mother would be proud. I watched my family huddled together in the corner, their world completely upended. part of me felt for them. Change is never easy. But a larger part knew this was necessary, not just for business, but for justice. The next few months were transformative. Sullivan Group's unethical practices were systematically dismantled. New policies were implemented, workers received better wages and safer conditions. Environmental standards were raised above legal requirements. Jennifer actually surprised everyone by embracing the changes she threw herself into learning about sustainable business practices, eventually earning a legitimate position in Sterling's corporate responsibility division. Michael struggled more, but finally found his place in community relations, where his charm could be used to build bridges instead of hide violations. My father stepped down as CEO, but stayed on as an advisor, gradually accepting that his daughter had built something better than he ever had. 1 year after the takeover, I stood in my office at Sterling Tower, looking out over the city. The Sullivan Group building was visible in the distance. Its logo now paired with Sterling's ethical business certification. My assistant knocked gently. "Your father's here for the quarterly review." I nodded, thinking about how much had changed. The last time I'd seen my father, he'd actually smiled when showing me the company's new sustainability report sent him in. I said, "And Jennifer too, if she's available. I want her input on the new worker safety initiatives." As they entered my office, my real office, not a storage room, I thought about legacy, about how sometimes saving something means completely transforming it, about how the best revenge isn't in destroying what others built, but in building something better. "Yourself ready to review the numbers?" my father asked, actually looking eager to share the improved performance metrics. I smiled, gesturing to the conference table where everyone had a seat. "Always," I replied. "After all, that's what happens when you treat everyone like an important client." The Sullivan Group continues to thrive under Sterling's leadership proof that ethics and profits aren't mutually exclusive. And if anyone ever suggests relegating someone to the storage room during meetings, they're quickly reminded of the day the consultant turned out to own the company. Sometimes the best view of success comes from starting in the storage room. You just have to be patient enough to wait for the right moment to open the